Hey Professor, so this is my second submission for my chat homework for distributed systems. And so basically what I did this time is I started with Java and I couldn't really figure out how to make it work with Java, so I redid my solution in Python and I was able to fix all the bugs that I had. So here you'll see I have this chat server, and let me scroll through it just really quick. So in my chat server, I define this function called the send data function, and so that basically this is it only sends data to other sockets, because if you see this for loop, it's looking for sockets in the connection list. The connection list holds all of my connections for every single person who is, or every single socket that is involved in the communication. So if that socket is not the server socket and it's also not the input socket, so it cannot be you, or the person who's sending the data, it cannot be the person who's sending the data, then it will send the message. So that basically just means that no one's going to get their own messages when they go ahead and send a message, so that they won't see their own input. So basically, yeah, we just send some data, and then if yeah, and then if there's an exception in the message, we try and remove the socket, and just some typical error catching type stuff. But down here, so what we do is when we start the server is we make sure that we have 2 arguments, otherwise we exit. And then I define my arrays here for a connection list, a name list, and a connection name list. So my connection list is just going to hold all the sockets, and then the name list is for all the client names, and then the connection name list is for all the client addresses that you'll see. I'll get those a little out below, and I'll point that out to you. So then I'm going to create the server socket to listen for the clients. So it's listening, and it's got all the appropriate inputs and setup and configuration right here with the socket and set socket OPT and the bind. So then we append the server socket to the connection list as the first connection, and then we created kind of an infinite loop here with this true. And so we basically say that we wait until we're ready for reading, and then we read, because I was reading some of the documentation for this select. And so it's just making sure that this is accessible and it can read that, so that it has all that input. And then for the socket in the read sockets, if you're reading the server socket, then you accept that, and connection you add the socket to the connection list. So yep, and that's if you're the server. If you are a client, then what we want to do is we want to try and receive your data, because if we catch an exception, we want to close the socket. But we try to receive the data, and then if the data exists and is a valid thing here, then we can get the client address. If the client address is new, then we can add it to the connection name list. If we already know the client, then we can just call the send data function right away, so that we have so that we can broadcast that to other people. And then basically we just have some error catching here that I think I went over. It's just we remove the socket if it's invalid, and then at the end of the program we close. And then I'll show you right here is my chat client. And so we have this receive data function here that's just another infinite while loop, because we want to make sure that we get all the messages. So we just receive the data. If the message, it's invalid, then we can just go ahead and exit, and then print the decoded message. And so what this is going to do here is we're going to check again that we have the correct number of arguments. We're going to create the socket and attempt to connect. So pretty standard stuff there. And then right here we just have a little bit of the UI for the user. We just want them to please enter their name, and then we want to tell them that, oh, okay, we have your name, we're sending your name to the server, and then that name will end up in the name list, and then you saw the server code, so it'll all be handled there. Then again, we're gonna create this thread, and we're gonna target the receive data function up here, and so we start up the thread, and then while the user input is not null, so yeah, while this message is not nothing, then we're going to send the data, that message, And so then after that, we can remove the socket and we can close it down at the very end of the chat client. So I was gonna go ahead and just run your script here for your Python auto grade, and I'll show you that it all works well with my code that I showed you there. I was having a little bit of an issue because there's this broken pipe error that I wasn't completely able to figure out. But you know, I still got 16 points. There are some times randomly where it will give me like 15 points. I think I have like right here, you can see I have 15 points, and I haven't really figured out why it switches back and forth between 16 and 15. But for the most part, it's 16. So please, if you do get 15, make sure to give me 16 or try run it again. So that pretty much concludes my recording. I didn't want to go through a ton of different bash windows to like show you all it working, because I thought if you saw your grading script that would be sufficient. But if you would like me to go through my scripting or all the different bash windows, just let me know and I'll redo a thing for you. But the code works and your script says so. So thanks. Bye.